So, hello everyone. Welcome back again to another episode of Scholarly Chronicles. I'm Hallie Evans, and I am here with my coworker and assistant program director for the Practice Doctorate program, Michelle Gravois, and also doctorate student Stephanie Wolfork, who's here to tell us about her work. It's a really interesting project, and I know she put a lot of time and effort behind it. So, Stephanie, we'll just hand it straight over to you. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to this topic.
Okay, well, I've been a CRNA since 2002, so I've seen a lot of things change, some good, some bad. But my inspiration for this project came from two things. The first thing was during our leadership class, we were talking about the racial demographics of CRNAs. And what was shown was that the CRNAs, African Americans make up only 3% of the CRNA workforce. And to me, I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. I was like, I didn't realize it was so low. And I didn't realize it was so low, I think, because I work in a large metroplex. I work in Dallas, Fort Worth. And so it's a huge cultural melting pot here. So I see African American CRNAs, I see Hispanics, Asians. So to me, I never thought, I was like, 3%, wow, it's really, really low. And if we have 61,000, I think, CRNAs, that's like only a little over 1,800 CRNAs that are Black. And so I thought, wow, that was, a wow moment. And so then the other thing was I went to this conference called the Multicultural CRNA Conference. And there they had a breakout session about HBCUs. And the HBCUs, they were saying that there was not one CRNA program housed at an HBCU, which I thought there was one, but ultimately there's none. And so I thought that was interesting too. So I said, wow, well, why is that? And so that's what led me down this path.
That is so interesting, and it is great to have you here for this podcast, Stephanie. It's such an interesting topic and an important topic. I would like to start with the type of project that you've completed and the model that you followed.
Okay, so I did a qualitative research study, and I distributed surveys to HBCUs that had nursing programs, but more specifically, the COA, the Council on Accreditation of CRNAs, they have specific guidelines, and so I just couldn't send surveys to just all the nursing programs. They have very specific criteria that has to be met for establishing new programs. And so one of their major things was that they had to have a DNP program already established in order to create. And so that limited the amount of surveys that I could send or the amount of HBCUs that actually qualify that can start or develop a program. And so I think there were 31 HBCUs that had nursing programs, but out of that, only about eight ended up being able that I could send surveys to.
So, I know you mentioned you went to the multicultural conference, and this type of literature can be really hard to find what's existing, hence kind of
Mhm.
why you did a survey. But can you tell me what you did find and how you did search for existing literature on this topic?
So first of all, I had a hard time trying to, because I'm new to research and using all the databases and all that stuff. So I really leaned on Sharon at the LRC. Shout out to Sharon. I mean, she is, oh my gosh, she is incredible. So she helped me. We use PubMed, we use Google Scholar. She helped me kind of go through and figure out to find to find some articles. And like you said, there wasn't a ton of research on my subject. So it was challenging in that way. But with her, just leaning into her services and her expertise was, I mean, and it was a lifesaver. It really was, because I wouldn't have been able to do it. I mean,
I love to hear that. Sharon Harmon is amazing and such a valuable
Yes.
resource that we have at MTSA. I would love for you to expand upon what you did with the information you were able to find, and how you came about your project design.
So, with my project design, it's a cross-sectional design. I We formulated a survey that I looked at questions or looked at. I tried to go through and glean the information that kind of stuck out to why there weren't any programs, why there was a lack of CRNA education. And so some things, I think intuitively you always think it's just money, the finances. But as I started reading just different articles, I noticed that there were faculty shortages at HBCUs. They didn't have like technological or the ability to um, have equipment or just regular things that nursing programs have. And so I tried to go ahead and try to find more research about that, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I answered your question like you wanted.
All right. So, what did you end up creating for your project?
I created a survey, a really good one. I was really happy with it, with a lot of help from you, Dr. Grove. I appreciate it because you're valuable too. I mean, everybody, like, I'm the only member of this group, if you can, I mean, so I really leaned into the top content experts, and you guys were my content experts. So Dr. Billings and Dr. Evans, you all helped me with that. And so you played a significant role with my survey. And I do appreciate it because it really came out really nice. I didn't believe I did it. But so I created a survey using the Microsoft Forms, and we used the Likart survey questions, and then we also had open-ended questions. And so I was surprised by the results because, like I said, intuitively, when you think about somebody starting a program, something as large as this undertaking, you think it's money. But overwhelmingly, the greatest barrier, it highlighted all these different barriers and challenges that the program directors, that the administrators, and people that were involved in decision making. It highlighted that the biggest thing was lack of clinical sites, which it never dawned on me that that would be a big deal. And it was like 100%. And so it that was really enlightening. And as far as like the major barrier, I thought it would be money.
Before we get to more of the results, because it is really interesting, what the survey showed, I just want to talk about a couple of things more on the research side. So in a cross-sectional study, you're kind of looking across groups at a single point in time. This was more of a qualitative, same idea, right? Where we're looking
Mhm.
during a specific period, but we're just not really comparing groups. So a little bit different than a cross-sectional study. But I want to hear about like the ethical steps that you took. Did you go through any committees, and how did you consent the participants?
So I was deemed IRB exempt. And so I did that. And then also I used the NTSA template for the consent, and I sent the consent prior to sending the email. And so just so that they could go over that, and it just discussed the risk. I mean, it made sure that they understood that they could pull out at any time, that it wasn't, there was no punitive anything. And so I did that, and then I sent the survey out.
And will you expand a little bit more on those survey results? What did they reveal?
So, like I said, there were three things. The greatest barriers. One was finances. financially, and I believe that was like maybe 86% of them said that, financially that was a huge undertaking and that would be a barrier. The second thing I thought too was, and it was about 80%, they said that they felt that sustainability. And in my mind, I'm like, well, once you start, you should be able to you should be able to keep it going. But I was reading through one of the articles and they were saying that they were having a hard time with retention of keeping faculty and staff. And I get it. We all move. I mean, especially nowadays, people don't stay on jobs 30 years, 40 years, and so they were having a hard time with retention. And then, like I said, the biggest factor was they didn't have clinical sites, the inability to have clinical training sites for CRNAs. And that was like 100%. Either they strongly agreed or just agreed that that was the thing that was the largest barrier, the greatest barrier.
It's interesting because that's even, that's a common problem even in nurse anesthesia programs, just retaining faculty. Expectations have changed, I think, what's expected in a job and what keeps people happy and keeps people in a certain place. And like you said, people are moving and growing and changing. So I'm not surprised to see that, pop up in your results. I want to ask you, like, what would you like to see be done next based on what you found? Should we be hounding these schools and trying to support them and get them to start programs, or how would we start that? What would you like to see as the next step of what you found?
Well, with what I found, I would love to see HBCU look at the barriers. I mean, I consider this project more of a building block. And so I would love for an HBCU to look at the barriers that I've discovered and go through each one. And once you start eliminating, we already know what the problem is. Once you identify the problem, it should be easier to find a solution. So if um let's say finances is the biggest thing, maybe they should focus on what can they do to correct that barrier. What can they do to correct? Maybe they can have partnerships with, as far as lack of clinical sites. Maybe they could develop partnerships with hospitals so that that won't be a problem. So if an HBCU could go through each barrier and correct it, maybe that would facilitate opening or, developing a program. So that would be my ultimate.
And, maybe not developing the clinical partnerships, but something like coming up with a financial plan or possible financial
Right,
resources could be something another student could take on to kind of continue this project, which is really the goal of these projects, for them not to the buck to not stop here.
right,
Um, and then I wonder too if the schools reach out to the hospitals and sites they're using for their nursing students,
right.
how open they would be to have just, we all start with a couple students here, a couple students there, as the relationships form. Is there anything else you'd like? Actually, before I get to that, I want to talk about the COA doctorate standards. So things
Mhm.
like leadership. Um, how do you feel you've developed? You know what I mean? Just in your whole doctorate journey from beginning to end, how do you feel you've grown as a CRNA, through research, through evidence-based practice, through leadership, through being able to educate? You're educating us very well on this topic right now. So you speak to the growth and transformation you've seen in yourself.
I feel like I question a lot more. So it can be something small, like it can be, I feel like I do a lot of high risk OB, and sometimes they'll say, it may be something small. They'll say, oh, we use this drug because of this, or this is the best way of, you know, doing something. And I'm like, well, why is that? Or do you have some articles to support that? Is this a valid article? I mean, and it's almost like I turned into some of the people that always annoyed me. Like, oh my God, just do it. Shut up and do it. I don't want to hear about what you read, and I don't want to hear that. And so, and so now I'm that person. I'm like,
You're that
do you
person.
have anything to support that? I mean, did you just make that up? And so I feel like it's opened my mind. I didn't know, like many of the people in my cohort, this is not, I mean, especially from when I went to school, we didn't learn how to research. And all of this is like a whole new foreign language. It is absolutely like learning a new language. And so I feel like I've grown in that regard. Like, oh, let me go on PubMed. Let me see if I can come up with some search terms. Let me, so I think it's made me a better CRNA, definitely. I think it's made me smarter, and I think it's made me be able to have, you know, an educated disagreement or discussion with my colleagues, even the physician colleagues, or even the surgeons I work with. It's not just, oh, because this is how I learned to do it, and because I think we're well past that in this day and age of information.
And
I
information is so readily available now.
Yes.
It's
Right.
almost inexcusable not to know why you're making the decisions you're making,
Exactly.
unless it's a
And
topic like yours where we need more information to be discussed. So we start with the survey.
I was just gonna say, I'm sure I'll speak for both of us, but I probably shouldn't ever do that, but I will. I think it's close to brings tears to our eyes, because what you're saying is what we want to see in a doctorate student when they finish. I mean, you've hit on every button of hope of what we hope someone gets out of this doctorate degree. So we're both, so proud of you and what this project
Thank you.
has become. And I've personally, seen your transformation and how we've both seen this project develop, and you really did a fantastic job. Um, with that, I'll go back to what I was going to ask before I got off topic there. Um, Anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with? Any final thoughts on the topic, on the process, anything at all?
Yes. So my biggest takeaway, the thing about this program, like I said, it's like a foreign language. And so, you really have to lean into your content experts. You have to lean into your resources. Shout out Sharon again, because she does it. I mean, she is so helpful. And I think when you start, you think, well, when I started, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to do this. This is a absolute, I don't understand any of this. This does not make sense. But the way you have it organized and have it designed, you do a little piece at a time, and it builds on itself. A little bit more, it builds on itself until you end up with this huge paper, this project, this huge body of research. And it makes sense, because I was concerned that I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to write a paragraph, let alone several pages. But the way with all the classes, the way it's designed, you get there. And I'm still amazed that when I look at my paper, I'm like, did I do this? I mean, so
And I try to tell people it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and there's
uh-huh.
some, trust falling that goes on along the
Yes,
way. You
yes,
have to trust us, and we'll catch you if you fall, and get you back on track there. Because it's
absolutely.
hard when you haven't done the end result to trust sometimes the steps to get there, and not just this, So I want to thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
This is our first episode this season, and I am going to share this right away with the wonderful Sharon Harmon, because maybe we'll have her come on to the next one even. So great job. Congratulations, Stephanie. You've earned this degree. You've come up with just a fantastic project. Thank you, Dr. Gribwell, for all your help on this project.
Yes.
My pleasure.
And
It was
Dr. Billings,
great
too, who couldn't
topic.
be here. Yeah.
Yes.
All
And I
right.
thank
So,
you all. And let me show you my t-shirt.
oh, let's see.
Let me
Uh-oh, it
see. Oh,
didn't.
come
You're
closer.
blurring. You're blurring.
Support Black.
Oh no, it's blurring.
What is it?
Okay,
Oh.
support Black colleges. Yes, now we see. Perfect. All right. Well, we will see everyone on the next episode. Thanks for joining.
Okay.
Thank you. Great to
Thank you
see
so
you.
much.